Hello and good morning. Let us recall to start with that we were discussing the fine structure of hydrogen. And there we had started the calculation for relativistic correction. So let me very briefly go back and remind you till how far we had reached in this calculation. And we had said that if we incorporate the relativistic motion, then the energy, the relativistic energy, is given by this square root of p square c square plus m square c to the power 4. And in this calculation, since we are using the hydrogen atom, we have one electron and one proton, but proton is much heavier than the electron. So for this calculation we simply had used this two body problem where the total mass is being replaced by the reduced mass of the problem, which is nothing but the electron mass, which we have shown. And then we neglected this relativistic correction for the proton compared to the electron. So therefore we looked at the relativistic kinetic energy of the electron, and that is being given by this total energy square root p square c square plus me square c to the power 4 minus the rest energy, which is given by mec square of the electron. And then we did an expansion, a binomial expansion, and from there we had actually recovered the non-relativistic kinetic energy of the electron, and the relativistic correction is being given by this pe to the power 4 by me cube c square into 1 by 8. And then we have neglected all the higher order terms, which starts from pe to the power 6. Now therefore our total Hamiltonian, which we had denoted by capital H, is nothing but H naught plus H1 R, where this R stands for relativistic correction. So we have this p square by 2 mu minus e square by 4 pi epsilon naught R as my H naught, and this correction p4 8 by 8 me cube c square is my H1 R. So this is the system that we are going to deal with, and we started dealing with this system where this H1R commutes with Lz and L square because of the spherical symmetry. And remember that this NLM, Kate NLM or psi NLM, these unperturbed eigenstates are also the eigenstates for this perturbed Hamiltonian. So in that basis the Hamiltonian is diagonal. So we can use this formula for the first order correction to be like this, where in principle there is N, L, M and Ms, all these four quantum numbers are there, and also we should be denoting by R something to denote that we are dealing with relativistic correction. So the formula is basically nothing but we have to take the expectation value of this operator H1R in this NLM or NLM-MS eigenstate. I will come to that discussion later today when we start discussing the coupled and uncoupled basis. That time we will start this discussion. So this therefore turns out to be a calculation to figure out what is this expectation value of this momentum to the power 4 operator in this eigenbasis. So that we have started to calculate, and we have observed that this p square by 2m plus v psi lm is equal to E n naught psi nlm is my Schrodinger equation, and from there we can simply write this p operator square acting on psi nlm to be in terms of En0 and V. And remember that this V was the operator whereas this En0 was the unperturbed eigenstate energies. So this is basically some number, it does not matter, it is not an operator. The right hand side, the operator is sitting here in this potential which is dependent on position. So now that therefore it reduces the job. Essentially you simply put the expression of this p square psi nlm into this inner product, and what you get here is basically this object 2me into En0 minus v psi nlm with inner product with the same thing. So we evaluated this object, and this inner product turned out to be of this form. So note, in this expression we have this En0 square, which is not really an operator. The second term has the expectation value of the potential in the uncoupled basis, in the NLM basis, and the third term is also the expectation value of V square in the same basis. And using this fact, this is normalized, we see that the whole problem is being reduced to calculation of the expectation value for V and V square, and that we are going to discuss right now. So first we have to calculate the expectation value of this potential operator. So how can we calculate that? So remember that the expectation value of the kinetic energy T, so expectation value of the kinetic energy operator, which we may denote by this symbol, is related to expectation value of the potential energy operator, where the potential is of the form r to the power n, any central potential kind of form, by this relation. If you have not proved this in your PH 204 course, please try to prove this, that the kinetic energy is related to the potential energy, the expectation value of kinetic energy is related to the expectation value of the potential energy for a central potential, by this relation, that 2 times expectation value of kinetic energy is n times the expectation value of the potential energy. And for hydrogen atom, therefore, for hydrogen atom, we know that our n is equal to -1. So expectation value of T, that means half m expectation value of the velocity squared, is nothing but minus half V, where this V is the potential. So since we are not using an hat anywhere, let's not use the hat here. In fact, as a side remark, the three-dimensional, there is this theorem called the virial theorem, the statement of which I just mentioned above here in this, the three-dimensional virial theorem. It tells us that 2 times the kinetic energy expectation value is expectation value of r times gradient of the potential for stationary states. And for the hydrogen atom, you can easily show that expectation value of the potential is basically nothing but 2 times En0, and kinetic energy expectation value is minus En0. So both of these are related. You can try to relate them as a homework. Now, so we just now saw, I mean I have just stated, I have not proved it, that T expectation value in the states NLM is minus half V NLM. Just now we have claimed that for hydrogen atom. So if we have H naught, the unperturbed Hamiltonian expectation value, it is nothing but T plus V expectation value in the same state. And we have just now seen that this is nothing but minus half V plus V, and this is nothing but half expectation value of V NLM. So we know what is the expression of V. It is minus E square by 2 times 4 pi epsilon naught expectation value of 1 by R in the state NLM. Therefore, we can use this to figure out what is the expectation value of 1 by R operator. It is nothing but minus 8 pi epsilon naught by E squared into expectation value of H naught operator in NLM state. But we exactly know how to calculate this expectation value of the unperturbed Hamiltonian in the basis states. So this is nothing but NLM H naught NLM or psi NLM, whatever notation you want to use, you can use that. So H naught acting on this is going to give us E N naught NLM, and NLM is 1, the normalization condition. So therefore this whole thing gives us minus 8 pi epsilon naught E N0 by E squared. And now we know what is our E N0. So minus 8 pi epsilon naught by E square into minus E square by 4 pi epsilon naught 1 by 2 A naught N square, where A naught was the Bohr radius. So this therefore immediately tells us this is nothing but 1 by A naught into N squared. So V expectation value in the state NLM is nothing but minus E square by 4 pi epsilon naught. We know 1 by R expectation value in the same state, which is therefore minus E square by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by A0 into N square, where N is the principal quantum number. So this is the expression for the expectation value of the potential in the uncoupled basis or in the NLM state. So therefore we can immediately calculate the V square expectation value also. So that therefore will require the calculation of 1 by R square operator in the same set of states NLM. And now this I am asking you to solve this as a homework. I will assign this in tutorial 3 to evaluate this. So the necessary ingredient, as I have already said, is already supplied in your assignment 2 in the form of Feynman-Hellman theorem. So you have to use that Feynman-Hellman theorem to figure out what is the expectation value of 1 by R square. In fact, I am writing the final result here. Please do this calculation. This is very interesting. This is E square by 4 pi epsilon naught whole square, since V square expectation value we are looking at, and then we have 1 by R square in the NLM state. And if you calculate this, so this is your homework, please show this, that this will give you 1 by L plus half into n cube into a0 squared into e square by 4 pi epsilon naught whole square. Okay, so this is what you have to prove. So therefore now let us come to the final expression. So let us look at this expression which we have derived in the last class. We use this expression and we replace this expectation value of v and expectation value of v square in terms of our known parameters which we have just now derived. So let me write it as E N L M MS. In principle they can be there, although we will see that they are not really present, but in principle they can be. And let me write this R in order to denote that we are looking at the energy correction due to relativistic effect. So this object is minus 1 by 2 times MEC squared into En0 whole square plus 2 times En0 into E square by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by N squared into A naught. So let me see. Yes, so there was a minus sign which will become plus because V expectation value has one minus sign sitting here. So this is from the first term, and the second term which has expectation value of V squared will be nothing but E square by 4 pi epsilon naught whole square into 1 by L plus half, and then we will have 1 by n cube into a0 squared. So that is the expectation value of V squared, the potential squared operator. So now let us simplify this a little bit more. We have minus 1 by 2 MEC squared, then En0 squared. En0 was our unperturbed energy, plus 2 times En0 into E square by 4 pi epsilon naught into we write down this A naught, replace this A naught by other parameters ME into E squared divided by 4 pi epsilon naught h bar square, and then there is 1 by n squared, and then plus E square by 4 pi epsilon naught whole square, and 1 by L plus half remains as it is. Only change here we have is just replace this 1 by a0 squared by me e squared divided by 4 pi epsilon naught h bar squared whole squared, and then there is 1 by n cube. So that's it. So if we now simplify everything, what we will obtain is this minus 1 by 2 me c squared into En0 whole squared, and then from here you can see that we have E square by 4 pi epsilon naught whole squared times h bar square n square, and then there is 1 En0. So from this combination we can take out one expression of En0, so that will give us minus 4 En naught squared, and then plus we again can write this using this and this and this. There is 1 by n cube here, so we can make this 1 by n to the power 4, and then in the numerator we can multiply with another n, so we will have term like 4n into En0 whole square divided by L plus half. So this has now become very simple expression. So this is nothing but minus En0 whole square divided by 2me c squared into 4n divided by L plus half minus 3. In fact, if we want to write this in terms of the fine structure constant which we had introduced in the last class, alpha to the power 4 me squared c to the power 4 divided by 2 times me c squared, and then there will be 1n to the power 4 also, and 4n by L plus half minus 3. So this is nothing but minus 1 by 8 alpha to the power 4, and then there is this mec squared divided by n to the power 4 into 4n by L plus half minus 3. So any one of these expressions are basically the energy correction due to the relativistic effect. So evidently the first point that you note here is that the relativistic correction is smaller than the En0. So that is the first observation that you can make. Relativistic correction is smaller than the unperturbed En0. So how much? By a factor of about, so we have En0 by mec squared, so by a factor of En0 by mec squared, which is of the order of, if you calculate this for hydrogen atom, you will get that this is 2 into 10 to the power minus 5. But what if you are not considering the hydrogen atom, rather some ion with more number of elements in the nucleus? Then you know that you have to replace this alpha to the power 4 for more protons and neutrons in the nucleus. You have to replace this by Z alpha to the power 4. But for hydrogen atom, this is the correction formula. Now again, you note another important fact, that the complete degeneracy of L multiplets for a given n here in this expression has been broken, because your expression is now dependent on L. So that is another interesting fact, that the complete degeneracy of L multiplet for a given n has been completely broken. So that degeneracy of the unperturbed Hamiltonian H0, if you remember in the last class we had discussed it, was explained by the conserved Runge-Lenz vector. And it is clear that the relativistic correction has broken that particular symmetry. So that is the most important or significant point that I wanted to mention here. So let us talk about the size of this correction. Let us remember that En0 we had written in terms of the fine structure constant as half alpha square me c squared into 1 by n squared with a minus sign. Or if you have Z in the nucleus, atomic number, we have Z, then this relation changes by this form 1 by n squared. So size of the correction is of course of the order of z alpha to the power 4. Size of the correction, it is of the order of z alpha to the power 4, or if you are just dealing with hydrogen atom, then it is alpha to the power 4, because you look at this thing, there is En0 whole square. Since En0 goes as z alpha square, so En0 whole square will go as z alpha to the power 4. And of course this is smaller than the original En0 or the unperturbed energy by a factor of z alpha square. So this clearly shows that the correction is smaller than the unperturbed energy by a factor of z alpha whole square. Now, although as I have mentioned in the previous class that we are actually using this z alpha square, this dimensionless quantity or ratio, as our perturbation expansion parameter, although we may not have realized it, this z alpha square was basically the dimensionless ratio which we are relying on to be small so that we can use perturbation theory, or for higher states higher than n equal to 1, to that effect it is z alpha by n square. Now that you can get a hint from this thing. The kinetic energy expression in general we write as half mv squared, and if you take the expectation value, then this gives you half m expectation value of v square, which for hydrogen atom I claimed that is nothing but minus half times the expectation value of v. Now we know for ground state n is equal to 1, so En0 for the ground state, this is just expectation value of t plus expectation value of v, which is nothing but half me c squared z alpha whole square, which is nothing but half expectation value of the potential energy, which again in turn is half me expectation value of velocity squared. So this immediately implies that expectation value of the velocity squared is nothing but z alpha whole square times c square. Now since this is relativistic correction, we expect it to be order of v square by c square. Since we are dealing with relativistic correction, we expect that the first significant correction will be of order v square by c square, because that's generally the expansion parameter that people use, I mean like in terms of v square by c square, where v is the characteristic velocity of the electron. And this implies, since we have just now shown that v is of the order of z alpha square into c square, therefore it means that this is of course of the order of z alpha whole square. So z alpha whole square indeed should be the small parameter that we are thinking of using as the expansion parameter, the series expansion parameter for perturbation theory. So having said this, let us look at the n is equal to 2 state. So as an example, let us take the example of hydrogen n is equal to 2 state. So n equal to 2 state immediately means what are my L values? L values are either 0 or 1. Now remember that the energy did not depend on L and M to start with. So let us recall that the unperturbed energy, this only went as 1 by n square, and it did not depend on either L or M. But now if you look at this expression, there is this L sitting. This L is everywhere. So if you look at this expression of the relativistic correction, it has L dependence. So for n is equal to 2, we will get different values of E and L. So this implies that we will get different values for E, NL, M, MS, 1R for L is equal to 0 and L is equal to 1. So that degeneracy in L has been lifted and the level will be split, and this splitting is due to the relativistic effect. So how does it look like? It looks something like this. So we have this breaking of the levels. Although initially we had this, let me draw these lines carefully. Okay, so this is my n is equal to 2 level, and if we now look at the relativistic correction, we see that n is equal to 2 level is now being split into 2 corresponding to L is equal to 1 value and L is equal to 0 value. So this is 1.187 centimeter inverse. This is in terms of the Rydberg, and this is comparatively smaller. This is 0.213 centimeter inverse. So let me remind you that these E1 are N, L, M and MS. This can be written as minus alpha square divided by N4 Z to the alpha 4 Z4 into R into N by L plus half minus 3 by 4. And for H, hydrogen atom, Z is equal to 1, alpha is 1 by 137, and R has the value 109678 centimeter inverse. So we now see that this has now split the levels of n is equal to 2 depending on the value of L. But it does not remove the degeneracy fully. Rather, the degeneracy is partially lifted. Degeneracy is partially lifted. It is clear because there are 3 quantum numbers, but our correction E, NL, MS, M and MS 1, it only depends on N and L. It does not depend on M. Therefore, because n is equal to 2 level is 4-fold degenerate, where L is equal to 0 is non-degenerate and L is equal to 1 is 3-fold degenerate. But we can clearly see that degeneracy, this 3-fold degeneracy of the L is equal to 1 level, which is because of the spherical symmetry, the rotational symmetry, which is because of this azimuthal quantum number m, that is still there. So that is still not removed. So let us now go to completely disconnected, at the moment it might see disconnected, completely disconnected discussion. We will now look at another effect which is known as spin orbit effect or spin orbit coupling, but this also comes under the fine structure of hydrogen. So this we will discuss, but as I was telling that in order to understand the fine structure, we need to include the correction due to relativity as well as because of spin. So far we were not discussing anything at all about spin. And while we do that, we may also want to put the atom in some electric field. That's the Stark effect, which will change the energy levels. One can also put the atom in some magnetic field that will give you the Zeeman effect, but those we are not going to discuss here. Those effects you will be dealing with in the other course on atomic and molecular physics. But to understand the spin orbit coupling, once again we need to do some background revision, which I was saying that something which might look like not completely correlated, but it is extremely correlated, as it will be clearly seen after I have this discussion. So this time what we need to remind ourselves is basically the coupled and uncoupled basis states for the understanding of addition of angular momentum. That also is another topic which you had encountered in your PH 204. So let us have a small detour and we will come back to this discussion as well as this discussion on the relativistic correction also, after we do a small detour on the coupled and uncoupled basis. So we remind ourselves that there were these two different choices for basis states for the hydrogen atom, both of which includes the electron spin properly. Okay, so we have the electron angular momentum and we have the electron spin. By angular momentum I mean the orbital angular momentum. So we have two different objects, one is the orbital angular momentum, another is the spin angular momentum. So we will have to deal with the addition of angular momentum in the hydrogen atom. This is because now we take spin very seriously, because we finally will come back to this spin orbit coupling thing, and for that this discussion is going to be a little bit helpful. So what we already have known about this, so recall in general for a multiplet of angular momentum j, suppose we have a multiplet of angular momentum, and let us denote this by small j. We have states which we generally denote by j and mj, with mj running from minus j to plus j. That's what you all know. And this running from minus j to plus j, it happens in integer steps. Now all states in a multiplet are eigenstates of j square. All states in a multiplet are eigenstates of j square with eigenvalue j into j plus 1 h cross squared, and for each state jz has the eigenvalue h cross mj. That's it. So we have electron spin also. So if we consider spin, the notation that we generally use are s and ms. What values these s and ms can take? It can take, s can take value half, ms can take either half, or ms can take minus half also. So these means there are two such states. Now orbital angular momentum, remember, can take any values like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, does not matter. But spin has only one value, which is s is equal to half. So correspondingly ms can be plus or minus half. So as a result of this, as a result of the fact that s value can only be plus half, the level s is omitted and one usually notes only ms value. So that's another point. I will come to that again as soon as possible. Now if you look at the orbital angular momentum of the electron, we have discussed spin, we are now discussing orbital angular momentum. The notation is basically L and ml, but since we are using m from the very beginning to denote the azimuthal quantum number corresponding to the orbital angular momentum, let us stick to that. So therefore for the hydrogen atom, basis states, we have the quantum numbers n, l, ml or m and ms. Now since we are not combining the orbital angular momentum of the electron to its spin, for that reason the states form the uncoupled basis. So these states form the uncoupled basis. So what we will be calling uncoupled basis? It is a set of states that labels the whole spectrum of hydrogen atom using those quantum numbers to distinguish all those states. So these quantum numbers are being used to distinguish all the different states. So the uncoupled basis quantum numbers are being given by n, l, m and ms. And as I have already said that because s is always half, therefore there is no need to write again and again in this level. Now as we let these quantum numbers run over all possible values, we obtain an orthonormal basis sets. So let us again look at this table which we had earlier drawn or discussed in the class. So we have this different degeneracies corresponding to the hydrogen atom, and let me remind this again and again that the small n, the principal quantum number, is equal to capital N, which is going to give you the number of nodes in the radial wave function. L is the orbital angular momentum, and this is basically giving you the degeneracy of n square, but once you consider spin, this will give you a degeneracy of 2n square. Now we also have said the following, that let us also use this notation of capital L, where capital L basically is a function of small l. So for example, capital L, small l equal to 0, we will call that the s orbital. Capital L with small l equal to 1, we will call that p orbital. Capital L with small l 2, we will call that as d orbital, and capital L with small l equal to 3, we will call that f orbital. So L values changes along, if I may say, the x axis like this: L0, L1, L2, L3, and these are S, P, D, F, the spectroscopic notations which we have discussed earlier also. And then n value increases along this y axis, if I may say. N is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, like this, n equal to 4, and it will go on like this. Okay, so how many states are there corresponding to this? So here n is equal to 1, l is equal to 0 is one state here. Then let me first draw them all, and then here it will be there like this, this, here also it will be there like this, like this. So here capital N is equal to 0, here capital N is equal to 1, and capital N equal to 0. Similarly here capital N is equal to 2, capital N is equal to 1, capital N equal to 0. Here capital N is equal to 3, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 1, and this is n equal to 0. So this you can actually figure out by having a look at this relation. So for example, take this state, for example, here L is equal to 2, small n is equal to 4. So L is equal to 2, small n is equal to 4. So we have capital N is equal to 1, capital N is equal to 1. So this is how you do this, but then it also tells you the degeneracy. For example, if I may write here with another color, so this is L is equal to 0, but corresponding to L is equal to 0, we have a degeneracy corresponding to spin, n is equal to 1. So n is equal to 1, L is equal to 0, we have 2 as the number of degeneracy, because 2n square is the degeneracy. Similarly, L is equal to 1 and n is equal to 2. Here we will have 6 different states, because L is equal to 1 means we have m equal to -1, m equal to 0, and m equal to +1. And corresponding to these 3 different m values, we will again have ms values plus and minus half for each of these states. So 3 into 2, so that will be 6. So this is 6, the degeneracy. Similarly here, L is equal to 2 means m equal to -2, -1, 0, +1, +2. 5 values, but for 5 values there are 2 different values of ms, the spin projection. So that means total 10 is the degeneracy on this state. Here similarly, if you calculate, this will turn out to be 14. So this table is very important for us. We will see that we will require this many times. So that's why I am discussing this again and again. Now this will tell us where I am along the n values which I have plotted vertically, and this will tell us where I am horizontally. That means it will tell me the L values. Now within the L multiplet, what is my value of m? And also we should know the spin projection, which is whether it is up or down. So all these information is basically given in this table in the form of N, L, M and MS. So this gives one-to-one correspondence to the basis states. Okay. Now, now you can do it in another way. We can use something which is known as the coupled basis. So, what is a coupled basis? Let us discuss this. So, consider now the total angular momentum, which is capital J, which is equal to capital L plus capital S. Now, when we add angular momentum, we have states that are representations of orbital angular momentum, which is denoted by L, and there are spin angular momentum, which is denoted by S. But we want to express these as the eigenstates of the total angular momentum. So it is recognizing the basis states in terms of the eigenstates of the total angular momentum. So that the goal is to figure out or recognizing the basis states as, or let me write it as in terms of the eigenstates of total angular momentum. So what we do is we are tensoring a full L multiplet to an S multiplet. So we are tensoring a L multiplet. Remember that they do belong to two different Hilbert spaces. So we do this tensor product L multiplet and S multiplet. So we do this tensoring of L with S. But here, of course, your S is half always. So all states in L tensor S are eigenstates of L square and eigenstates of S square. So all states in this multiplet with, of course, S is always half, are eigenstates of L square and S square. So L and S are good quantum numbers for all the J multiplets. That arises in this tensor product, of course, and each J multiplet has states with quantum numbers J and Mj. So that we already have mentioned. So L multiplet tensored with S multiplet, it is going to give you some sum over all the J multiplets. That's what is the idea of angular momentum addition. And you know that these L multiplets are being designated by this L and M quantum numbers. S multiplet are being designated by S and MS quantum number, and J and Mj are the quantum numbers here on the right hand side. Now note one interesting thing. Even if you want, we cannot specify more quantum numbers to either L or S multiplets. Here all the states are eigenstates of L square. Here all the states are eigenstates of S square. So Lm for small l and Ms for S, the spin multiplet. That's what you have. You don't need to specify any more quantum numbers. But here one may ask this question, can one specify more quantum numbers? In fact, the answer is yes. You can specify more, and that is L, S, J and Mj. Because all the states in J multiplets are eigenstates of L square and S square as well. And because of that fact, L and S are good quantum numbers here also, as I just mentioned in this statement. But remember, M and MS are not good, and they are not eigenstates of LZ and SZ. These JMJ, they are not eigenstates of this ML and MS. So, therefore, as an example, let me think about this tensoring. L tensored with half, the spin half. This is orbital L and this is spin half. So what do we expect? We expect nothing but L plus half and a direct sum with L minus half. Now remember, what is this object? This is your that J max. You have encountered all these things in your PH 204, and this is your J min. So when you do this tensoring, that's what you get. And what is the notation here? If I want to write this object, what is the notation that generally is used in this spectroscopic sense? Remember, we introduced that capital L as a function of L. So this should be capital L and this should be J, and let me write instead of J as L plus half, direct sum with L minus half. That is the spectroscopic notation. And again, remember, we have introduced this L as a function of L. That means L with small l equal to 0 is your s orbital. Capital L with as a function of small l, which is equal to 1, is giving you capital P orbital, like that. So the spectroscopic notation for the coupled basis, which is going to be very important in our next discussion, is nothing but this principal quantum number times capital L J. That is the spectroscopic notation. Why it is like that? To understand that, let me first look at, again go back to this table and let me copy paste this now again. So let us look at this table carefully. So we have, let us see, we have here n equal to 1 and L equal to 0. Let us look at this state. N is equal to 1 and L equal to 0. So our notation will therefore be 1 for small n, because this is the notation that we are going to follow, and then capital L for small l equal to 0 is nothing but capital S. So 1s, and what should be the J here? The J here is nothing but half, because 0 tensored with half is going to give you S half. In all L equal to 0 states, this is going to be the same. This is therefore the same story here also. Let me use another. So here also it will be 2, n equal to 2, and this will be S because L equal to 0, 2S half. This will be 3S half. This will be 4S half. Like this. Now what about the spectroscopic notation in this other case? Say for example L is equal to 1, N is equal to 2. So let us look at this. What happens here? We have here 1, L is equal to 1 and tensored with spin half. So what are the possibilities? Again look at this. it is going to give you L plus half, direct sum with L minus half. So that means if L is equal to 1, this is going to give us 3 by 2, and here it is going to give us half. So it is a direct sum between 3 by 2 and half. So what are the different states here? So here the states will therefore be 2 for small n, it is 2 small n. Capital L therefore here is P because small l is equal to 1. And then we have two different things. One is 2p 3 by 2 and 2p half. Similarly, here also this is 3p 3 by 2 and this is 3p half. This is 4p 3 by 2, and this is 4p half. Now if I come here in L equal to 2, N equal to 3 and capital N equal to 0, this level, then I have L is equal to 2. That means we have a direct product or tensor product between 2 and half. So this therefore is going to give me 5 by 2 direct sum with 3 by 2. So the notation here will be 3 for small n, D for small l equal to 2, and 1 is 5 by 2 and 3D 3 by 2. And similarly here it will be 4D 5 by 2, 4D 3 by 2. Similarly, if we come to this last one, small l equal to 3, small n equal to 4, that means we have 3 with half tensored. So this is going to give us 7 by 2 with 5 by 2. So this is nothing but 4f 7 by 2, 4f 5 by 2. We are just showing you the notations for different multiplets. These are basically the name of the multiplets that we have written here as 4s half, 4p 3 by 2, and this will tell us the number of states in the multiplets are basically whatever which we have written in this within these brackets. Okay, so let me stop here for today. We will continue this discussion and this will be required in the discussion of both the spin orbit coupling as well as for the relativistic correction which we did just today.